Hey, how you doing there? It's me, your Griot, your Sensei Al Bob, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. Looking out of a smudged up window. When I show where lights are going crazy. Summer outside, but yet we're snowing. Don't know where our next dollars come from. Living the life of a poor musician. So does that sound a lot like you? You know, looking out the window, a smudged window, not knowing where life's going. Hey there, Mr. AI. Love you, puppy. Love you, puppy. Yes. Anyway, welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I'm sitting on the car. The old case kind of closed down. It's interesting. I told you that. The old 19 hits his place like a brick, and because of incompetence and corruption and all the above. And that's exactly what the corona is telling us is the level incompetence. That's what we are suffering from. What is taking us down is that level of incompetence. And people that I know are relatively semi-intelligent say stuff like this. Okay, we'll have to wait for that guy to boot up. But I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm underneath what's really interesting. All around, I mean, I am in the super rural, look at that, super rural kind of neck of the woods. And pretty much all the general stores closed again. And part of it is economics. No one's buying stuff in the stores, and people are getting sick. So why wait around? It's like Russian roulette. So so what happened? The Chamber of Commerce of this little county, which runs everything, these 20 guys, and they're always the mayor. They're always the police chief. One of those 20 guys. It's always they have elections, but it's like being in Chedayetsko, where no matter who runs, the fearless leader always wins by 90%. And so we're heading towards an election that should be really interesting. First off, it doesn't matter. Whoever wins, it's the same guy. Whether it's the car salesman from Delaware, JoJo, or Carrot Head, the same guy. They both work with the hidden hand, right? Now, the real question is, what is the hidden hand doing? Why are they doing this? Why are they crashing the world's economy? Why are they, spreading this biological warfare? And this is a biological warfare because, Carrot Head, what I love about Carrot Head is that he lies so much, he tells the frigging truth. It's truly frigging amazing. So let's see if this is booted up yet. Yep, it has. Let's see. Hopefully those messages are still there. Yep. Let's see. From my here we go. Come on. Okay, here we go. Now this is, this is my bro, and I keep saying, "Hey, I love you." What's happening, right? Let's see. So this is him still cleaning up after hurricane. Long, complicated story, but my main generator blew up. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna have to try. So here's a guy who's Mr. Prep, and just a little storm took him out. And my sister, and this blew through his town in a day, and he's still cleaning up. This was like 3 weeks ago. Outside, just watching the world spin out of control. He's world's ending, world's spinning out of control. Can I call you later? Sorry, I can't talk right now. Got your message, except for endless issues. I'm fine. So he's like me.
I broke a lot of things when I was young, and now I'm old. It bothers me, And plus, all of us kids don't realize that our parents, my mom had diabetes. She had all the stuff I have. My dad had some other really. They never told us. My parents never told us nothing. And so we're all getting sick without realizing it's just genetics. Not to worry about the social life or busy schedule. Hundreds of friends. I see them often. Sunday afternoon dinners at my house on a screened-in porch almost every week. It's hardest reservation to get in town. So he's gathering with friends on his porch and having dinner. Not thinking about the pandemic. I have no interest in dating, getting involved, any kind of romantic blah blah blah. Not sure. Remember, but I was the one and only Rose Bonanza. Yep, I must say, yep, Possum, yep. Possum 75 sent my ways. Very opinionated, and your face. I would not put up for an instant. Some female tell me to pick up my socks. I've been married 3 times. Blah, 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 blah. Be careful of the Intifada. Does not come up and kill you and take over your forest. Really? There's so many people around here with guns. I don't think that would happen. And, the other interesting thing is, this whole scene here was caused by old white rich men who came from someplace else. They're not even from our Chamber of Commerce. None of those guys are from here, right? They're all from Charlotte or New Jersey or New York. And they've been like me here 20 years or longer. And they realized they could get over, and so they did. And they got, they were the front men of the people like Bayer and Monsanto who bought out these farming counties and put in their own business model, right? And basically, they replaced vegetables with tobacco, soybeans, feed corn, and Christmas trees, right? And they spray night and day. It's like unbelievable. So the cancer rate is right? And we used to have a very nice county little hospital, but those guys brought in a HMO to take it over to run it like a business, and then they left. They courted out and left, right? So we have no health care whatsoever, and or very little. So when this thing happened, the lady who was in charge of public health said, "Oh, we got to start testing," and they said, "No, we don't. You're fired." And that was like in April, and so we had a thing where we were back 20 years ago given a choice between a community college and a jail. They picked the jail. It was state jail, and then the state threw it to a company. And it used to have a population of 300. Now it's population 1,900. It was built for 300, and they stuck 1,900 in there. Anyway, so it's an interesting scene. So that's where 19 percolated because these guys are taking people from ICE and all over the place, not just the neighborhood. So our little being out in the way didn't last too long. And so the guys who were working there got sick and gave it to the wives who worked in the old folks' home up there. And it was all up in this one part of the county that no one noticed, right? The jail, the trailer park where these people live, the guys who work in the jail, and this old folks' home. So then the wives got sick and gave it to the old folks. And then it got so bad there that instead of dealing with it, the again, same HMO that created our hospital basically said, we're closing this down. And they sent all of those sick old people back to their families' homes. And that's how it got out really rampant, between the people who worked in the jail and their wives and them going to the stores and no one wearing masks and they still don't wear masks. We saw It's a Magamede thing. And so what happened was it started to creep out from here into the surrounding counties, into the rich people neighborhoods like Johnson City and Boone and Kingsport, right? Especially Kingsport. Woo-wee. Rich, rich, rich. And, a few other of those towns. And so they got together. We have a National Guard in our county, and its speciality is biological warfare and hospital. So they kind of took over the medical thing, and they tested everybody. Right? They just came around and tested. They were in the parking lot of the supermarket. If you walk by, hey, come over here. And they had a test that they just swabbed your mouth, and it told you in less than a minute whether you were infectious. Not whether, you had an antibody or any of that, but whether you were infectious, right? Whether you could spread it to somebody else, right? And they just took your phone, what's your phone number, right? So they could, watch you on the on your phone. So, and that was, a couple of weeks ago, and that really cut it. And they had this test, and I asked the guy who runs it, he's a sergeant major, I know him pretty well, and I said, why doesn't this little test around, the world? And he goes, well, it's a military thing. And I said, so this is a biological weapon. And he and I know each other. We talk about stuff. And he didn't say yes or no, but he smiled. I said, well, we're going to have to go have lunch down at the Mexican restaurant and talk about this. And he said, yeah, I'll take you out to lunch. So he's one of those people who take me out to lunch. So, it was quite interesting, and now we're like at herd immunity, right? And the guy knows where I live, so he goes, "Man, you are like self quarantined. That's why you're not sick. And there's nobody around you. You don't have to worry." Da da da. And I said, "Yeah, I know. And he goes, "Yeah, I know you know." So that the most interesting thing was there was a test where they just kind of take this like little piece of paper, like that big, and swab your mouth, and then put it in this little test tubey thing, and hit it with a few chemicals, and if the piece of paper turns a certain color, it's green. If red, you got it, right? So, and it's very similar to the the piss test to see if you're pregnant, right? You bodily fluid onto a strip that is sensitive to certain hormones. That's it, right? Now this thing is very similar, same kind of design, but it's not. It can figure out viruses, and since they have the virus string, they kind of and so they've had this test for an awful long time. And so when Carrot had said, it's no big deal, it's like the sniffles. Well, he was right. The majority of the people get it. But the other side of the coin is they're saying, oh, and young people don't get it. Well, they don't die like old folks do. But what seemingly is happening is once you get infected with this, it's probably better if you are old, because what'll happen is you'll either die relatively quickly if they don't try and keep you on a ventilator for, in limbo for torturing you. But if you just, like me, if I were to get it and get really sick, I'm not going anywhere. If I get over it, I get over it. Right? If I don't, I don't. And I think in February I did get it because I kind of got the sniffles, a little serious form of sniffles, but I used my little bag of tricks to keep it under guard, and took a lot of fluids, a lot of vitamin C and other things. And, in about a week, I was okay. So I don't know. I never got tested. I don't know if I have the antibodies, blah, blah, blah. But another person, a medical person I know, said, again, there are many more, but there are these 4 gated communities. One is intelligence people of all breeds, CIA, NSA, ONI, you name it. All of them have a very nice little, and they're very comfortable being amongst each other. And it's just like, 2 miles from my front door, right? And a friend of mine who's a colonel, he knows a lot of those guys, and he and I are buds, and so he takes me to go visit those guys, and we talk about all kinds of stuff on their porches. So it's a very nice thing. And so the other side of the coin is um, there are other entities of that. I mean, different groupings of people, right? Who have, they retired up here. It's nice. There's nobody up here. It's really beautiful. But they're starting to realize that even though they got some money and they had some privilege and and they got a really nice house, they are living in this 200 square mile patch of Appalachian poverty, and they're living in these gated communities. So but the water and air that's floating by them is pretty much. And so they're this, like I said, these medical people from the military side who are retired and who live in another one were telling me, and they're getting involved with this crew that's really an amazing crew of people who run the farmers market. They are the most organized crew, and they're probably one of the strongest political entities in the freaking state, because they're very strategically minded, and if there's an issue they want to go, they don't go to the board, county committee. No, they go straight to state legislators. They go straight to Washington. They know how to pressure these guys. So bottom line is, those guys who live in those gated communities who thought they were protected and everything, and then realized, especially medical guys, how it threats, especially when this thing just swept through, and the incompetence of the political class was it. So my bro's going on about, the Democrats and how evil. There's no difference between Democrats, Republicans. They are two wings of the same bird. Go read Gary Allen's None Dare Call It Conspiracy. The other thing, look at, California, getting barbecued. That is not a natural thing, right? I live in a rainforest. Now, we've had, and Carrot Head goes, oh, they need to be sweeping the forest, clean that up. Then they wouldn't have the fires. No, sorry, buddy. When you have weeks, months at 100, 3 digits heat, and then you have the large fires in California, these thunderstorms. They weren't thunder; they were just lightning from the sky. Meaning, it seems to me we have technology that can do this. Scalar technology. Go look that up. Nikola Tesla, scalar technology, weaponized scalar technology. Go check that out. Go read Whitley Strieber's book called Grays. That's a good book. Whitley Strieber's pretty cool. He's the guy who wrote Communion, and he was like abducted and has a relationship with those guys. So he's got an interesting take on the extraterrestrial world. And so, our history is a joke. There's a great book I was just listening to. I have a great public radio station here, ETSU's public radio station, really good. They got a lot of good shows. And one of them is your weekly constitutional. This guy's at constitutional law at one of the colleges in Virginia and Madison, and he had a guy on who wrote a book, Lies Your Teacher Told You, and the history, because history books are a joke, and what we're taught in public schools is a joke. People think, oh, Reconstruction was when a bunch of people, black guys who couldn't read, took over the Southern politics for a year or two, and then they were so incompetent they were replaced by brilliant white men who brought on Jim Crow and blah blah blah. No, go do your homework. Go see what Reconstruction was. Black and white folk came together. Not just black people, and said, we want to make the South a better place. And they rewrote every one of those constitutions. It was friggin' amazing, and it was, and poor people, it was about American citizens, not rich white men. And, for about 10 years, things were running pretty good for everybody. And that gave the people who had drive to get up and go and do it. And a lot of black people, like, boom, the black folk had it in them. They had the they were doing all the work anyway. So now, and there were a lot of towns. You go to any city, like Roanoke's a good example. There was a section of Roanoke where the black folk, yeah, they were isolated, segregated, but they were um, richer than the same socioeconomic. They had better schools, better everything because they took care of themselves, right? Just like this county, when the political class ran this place, it's a joke. But when the people run it, just like the guys who were in the National Guard, they put this thing down like this, like in a week, right? Tested everybody with this little thing that you just swab your mouth and bingo, it tells you in less than a minute whether you're infectious. That's the important thing. This could be mass produced. And he said it is mass produced. They just don't give it to the public or the medical world because the medical world's making too much money on this. So let's see. I'm sitting in a car with the sun in my face, so I can't read what you said there, buddy. Unless you, if you're making a comment, do it all in caps. Let's see. I love the Greys. I listen to a lot of channel content about the ETs. Yep. Anthony, haven't heard. Hey, good to see you, buddy. Always good to see Anthony. Always good to hear from any of you. So Anthony, did you read Whitley Strieber's book, The Greys, right? And about the guys who had, the big triangles and blew up, Washington, D.C. with scalar weapons. That's the next thing to come. We will have a Hollywood-produced invasion by aliens, but they will not be from another planet. They will be the aliens we are, First, we're going to try and have a little, civil war here. And not just in the United States, across the frigging planet. But there are countries like Canada and Ireland and the Netherlands and Switzerland and Sweden and all those guys who kind of know we're not going to do that. Well, that's why we're going to be invaded by aliens, right? And so, I don't live in fear because, all my neighbors are really, all of those things that Hillary goes, those baskets are deplorable. They're not deplorable. They are nice people. Now, they're extremely poor. They haven't had any of, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They just barely staying alive. And stuff hit them like you want to know what's a real pandemic? The opioids. They are still out there in the big way. And those companies are still making billions of dollars off it, It's like truly amazing. And the companies that are doing this, they've been caught. State attorney generals have been suing them, but they got lawyers and they're just keeping it in a court. You thought, oh, that was already taken care of. Not really. There hasn't really been a case justified yet. And yet they still are allowed. I mean, we still have pill mills around here. It's like, because when you're miserable and you're working really hard and, that truck runs over your foot and there is no doctor to take care of it. And the only thing you can get is an opioid. So, and you can tell people, their eyes are sunken in their head. Their skin is like this gray-green. They're like zombies. So that's what's, what we're staring right in our face. Let's see. What's Anthony saying here? You're the guy from, let's see. Oh, gratitude. You are the guy from the cell repair shop. Yes. That's me. I don't work there, but that's where my cell guru is, and I am pitiful with this technology. For being an electrical engineer, I am pitiful because my whole thing was exotic kind of stuff and computers. When I was freshman in high school and a seminary to be trained to be a rocket scientist for the Pope, we had computers. We had a terminal, in our school up to a big mainframe, right? And it was so boring because we had cards and paper tape, and we had to, program it that way. It was like, really, give me a break. So that kind of put me off on computers. And then I lived with a woman who was the most brilliant computer programmer, computer scientist on earth, Christine Barton. She, that little logo at Pixar, she was at Stanford, and that was her PhD thesis. She was the first human being to write a program to render digitally a three-dimensional object that could move in space in 3 dimensions on a flat screen. She was the first girl. And then after that, she went on to Xerox. Then she went on to, she just kept going up, right? And when we hooked up, she was running General Electric's everything, right? And everybody treated her like a racehorse. She was like, whoa, nobody's this smart but her, right? And people who were above her and below her, just, who were in the institutional side of things, were jealous of her and would give her a hard time. So once she met up with me, I met her at a party, and it was really boring. All these people trying to impress each other how smart and rich they were, and I came in, looking like me. And the host came over and greeted me, and gave me a cocktail and talked to me a little bit, and introduced me to a few people. And I saw this, relatively tall, lanky minx leaning against a door jamb, which is kind of what I usually do. And I went over and leaned on the other side of the door jamb and said, "So, what are you doing in a place like this?" And she kind of smiled at me, and I said, "Isn't this ridiculously boring?" I said, "I came here for the food, and I had this little pack with me and had my Tupperware in it. And I said, this dreck isn't even worth taking home." So I had a bottle. So I went over. I said, "What do you like? Vodka, scotch. What do you like?" Oh, and she said, "Well, I'm a scotch girl." I went over and filled a liter bottle I had with, the best scotch they had. I said, "Let's go." So, and I took it around to a bunch of nightclubs. I did my nightclub crawl, and just walked around the city and took her to Chinatown, and we had dim sum. And then, we went over to Spring Street where the bakery was. And in New York City, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have these great little rolls that were like baguettes, but little rolls. And Mike Finelli, Godfather, he was the godfather of these little restaurants. You could not get a tablecloth, a napkin, or these little rolls and the hotel bar butter that was designed to go in them without the okay of Mike, And the other thing he controlled was the tap. Beers, you can get beer from beer thing, and you can get the hose and all that. But that little tap, he provided. If you didn't, sign on with him, you did not have beer in your facility. People are saying stuff. Let's see here. Oh, and thank you. I see you are yep, I am the guy. I heard you telling them about your YouTube channel. Yep. Yeah, you were saying a lot of the same stuff, but then I saw you get in a car full of garbage. Yes, I live as a homeless guy. See, there it is. It's not garbage. It's my stuff. And this is what pretty much every American can look forward to. I couldn't even get a moment to ask them about the screen replacement, so I left them a bad Google review. Yes, there is the guy who owns it is all about the Benjamins, right? And the other people who are in there are zombies. They don't know squat. There's one guy, little guy. He's runs the whole thing, and they should be paying him a lot of money, and they don't. But he fixes everything. He is the guy. He and I have a very nice rapport, and his boss, because they have the security camera, saw that I would come in on a regular basis, and he would help me with my laptop or this or that. And he said that you can't help that guy unless he pays you $25 a visit. $25. And I said, so if it takes me 5 minutes or 5 seconds, $25, right? So the guy said, yep. So what I do is I go in there and he helps me out. And I have a big long list. So it's not, he's going to be there for at least 10, 15 minutes fixing this, fixing that. And then I like open my wallet to the camera, like, right. And I pull out a bunch of dollar bills, right. And and I got them all crumpled up and folded up and handed them. And it's usually $2 or $3, right. And he goes, yep, that's good enough, $25. And he puts it, but that's America. Everything's a microcosm. You can see how corrupt everything is. To my brother who goes, you have to watch out for Antifada. They're going to come up and kill you. Come on. No. And I get him. But I would say more to the point, if he has his, Sunday dinner parties, somebody's going to come there and because pretty much everyone's got this. This thing has been so poorly handled by everyone. And you couldn't handle this worse than what's happened here. I mean, look at the United States, richest, most technologically advanced. They have all the tools. I saw it, they have the little thing they can just wipe your mouth with and say whether you're. So if they gave everyone a little box of those little pieces of paper, and every morning when you got up, if you, swabbed your mouth, you would say, well, I can go to work or I can't. I should stay home, right? So if they did that, we wouldn't be in the mess we, economically, because economically we are way, when you lose 33% of your GDP for a year in 3 months, no matter what the frigging stock market's doing. And the stock market is only going up because the Federal Reserve, which is a privately owned, stock-held corporation, has nothing to do with the federal government. They print the money in our Constitution. The reason why we had a revolution, no taxation without representation. What was that our founding fathers were talking about? They were talking about the king wanting to put a Bank of England here and charging us for our money. And that's exactly what the Federal Reserve does, right? And it took them 100 and something years to get there, but they did, And so that's where we are. And, Bill Clinton balanced the books, but he decontrolled everything. So in 2008, that's why we had to, that's why the bubble burst on the .com. And that's why we had 9/11, because these were all distractions. And it was really a real estate deal. I mean, the World Trade, I worked on the World Trade Center as an apprentice electrician, right? And then I went from apprentice to journeyman to journeyman in less than a month, which is unheard of, because I'd already been working for Mike Stahl for like 8 years. I was a good mechanic / journeyman. I could go out and fix anything on my own. And to get my master's license, you had to put some years in the union. Now, Mike's shop was a union shop and a non-union shop. And so I was on the non-union shop books. But I needed to, so he started Local 3. So he started the IBEW with this other guy. And so, I got put in, I went to apprentice school. And how I got to be a journeyman showed up. It was at, City College. And I showed up there one evening for this class. And there were about 20, 30 people in there. And we waited. There was no teacher, no guy sitting in front of us. Nobody. And I said, so I got up and said, so, hey, how you doing? My name's Al. So who here has been working for an electrician for more than a year? Nobody raised their hand, right? Who here got in such and such program? Everybody raised their hand. That was like the New Deal program. If you were a certain socioeconomic thing, woman, person of color, blah, 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 you got to take this program, right? You can easily wash out, right? So, and the union got a ton of federal money for this. So anyway, I said, okay, so until the guy shows up, let's talk about this, right? So I started teaching the course, and we had no books, nothing. And this one guy goes, oh, look over here. This is the box of books, So we opened it up. We took it out. I said, okay, everyone kind of read the introduction and read the outline of the chapters, right? So we did that. We started talking about it. And then this guy came in and he kind of saw that we were having a class, so he sat in the back and watched. And I went on and on and on and on and on. And I said, okay, so next week, when we show up here, why don't you try and read this book? And this is your book. You don't have to, you can write in it. You can scribble on it. You can put your name along the, so this is your book, right? And you should keep this book because no matter what you do, it's a pretty good book. And it'll tell you everything you need about the code and this and that. Keep this book. Of anything in this program, this is probably the most important thing. So go home and just kind of, from cover to just kind of go through it, look at whatever chapter might interest you, and get yourself some Sharpies that you can read through, yellow, oranges, and just, start marking up the book and write questions. And just look, they got a big thing that you can write questions there, and we'll talk about that when you come back. Okay. And remember, no tests, right? Okay. So don't worry about anything. Just come back next week. So everyone walked out, and I noticed that guy there, and I knew who that guy was. He was a union rep. And so the guy who's supposed to teach this class probably couldn't make it. And so that guy, we went down the phone chain, and he was the guy to show up to do this class. And he was like, an hour late. And I had already, he was there 15 minutes. And I let everybody go. So he goes, that was the best class I've seen anybody teach, that you are. Mike Stoll, he told me all about you. You are his grandson, and you are the second coming electrician. So how would you like to teach this course? I don't want to teach it. And I said, don't I have to be a journeyman to teach this? And he goes, you do. You are now a journeyman. I said, isn't it supposed to take about 4 years to go from apprentice to journeyman? He goes, yeah, but you have been at Mike's place for 9 years. You are a journeyman. He told me that. So, you gave the best class I've ever seen. And how old are you? And I said, oh, I'm, 19. He said, see, forget about it. You're the dude. And what are you doing? You need to come work on the World Trade Center. Everybody who, that is going to be the doom de plume for anybody who's going to go on to be an electrician. I worked on the World Trade Center. And I said, well, you'll have to ask Mike. I said, I will. I'll call him tonight. And why don't you? Here's my card. Why don't you? And write. He scribbles and said, I'm there all the time. I actually have a construction office there. Look for it, or just call this number that rings here. If I'm there, I'll pick it up. And anyway, so I said, sounds good to me. When do you want me to show up? And he says, oh, why don't you show up? Here it is, Thursday. Why don't you show up Monday? And I said, okay, sounds like a plan. And I'll talk to Mike. I said, you know what else? Right near by there is Towers Cafeteria. So, I had breakfast there all the time. I said, I live right next to it. He goes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mike's shop, one of his shops is right down there. I said, yep. Mm-hmm. So I said, why don't we meet there and have breakfast? You tell me everything you want to tell me, just you and me over eggs and coffee. And then, we'll walk the 3 blocks of the World Trade Center. He goes, great idea. And Towers Cafeteria became the Odeon. Odeon is a super duper fancy, rich restaurant in Tribeca, right off of Varick and Chambers, and near Duane. And it's right at this fork in the road where 6th Avenue and West Broadway come and make Varick, right at Chambers. And so he does, and he goes, listen, one thing. So he explains how the World Trade Center isn't being built on site. It's like being built in factories, shipped there and stuck together like a tunnel, a Rector set. And he goes, but the internal things like the plumbing, electric, that's, it's not like a double wide or, where they, at least, the sections of the building, the structural parts are built in a factory because they're built in such a way that they are so strong. Because he goes, each floor of each of those towers is an acre big. An acre, you know how big an acre is, and it has no supporting walls or columns on the inside. Everything's supported on the outside wall. And the more stress that is loaded this way, the stronger the building gets, right? Oh, that's quite interesting. So he goes, But we are moving almost a floor a day. They're like, because everything's being built off site and just stuck together. So the main thing is sticking the electrics and the plumbing into each of the floors as they go up, because everything's in the floor. There are no walls. They will build walls later, but there are no things where electric and plumbing comes out of a wall. So, like a building that has columns, all of the risers are put next to the columns, not so much this. So he says each of those floors has to be, and he goes, each floor is 4 foot thick. And he goes, it has rebar that thick, right? And then it has rebar pads, and it has aircraft cable strung between the walls like a spider's web. And we have to put our pipes and wires and everything in before they start stringing all the stuff together. So we have to be on ball. And so everything's in galvanized pipe. And everything is, that's in the floor is like 2 inches and above. And to bend that, you have to use hydraulic benders. And there is a hydraulic bender out that Greenlee has. That is a table that you put the 10-foot piece of pipe, and there are these little dials, and it's a mathematical equation. If you want a 90, a 40 at this, you kind of set all these little dials, hit the button, it goes, so you can do 90s and offsets and all kinds of things on one piece of pipe, and you don't have to move the shoe. It just goes, you push, set all these little dials, push the button, goes, and it goes. You have to think inside out. You have to think backwards. And it's very difficult we haven't really found anyone to do it. And that's one of our so what I'd love you to do is we have this, metal building, and you'd be there, and, we will grab some of the smartest monkeys we can get, and you will figure this out, and you will have this punch list of how, you're going to have to bend maybe 200 pipes a day to keep up with the floor. And as you get the hang of it, and you have the smart monkeys at your side, you will teach them, and then we will get an assembly line going. And I talked to Mike Stahl about this, and he said, "You're the guy." So I said, "Okay." Because, and that's another reason why you're a journeyman now, because you're going to be telling guys what to do, and you're 19. Forget about it, right? So I said, "Okay, I'm fine." And I had real long hair, so I show up. We walk up there. He's the head guy, local 3 on this job, and he tells everyone, "Okay, this is Al. He's a journeyman. He's Mike Stahl's boy. He is 19. Yes, he has long hair down to his butt, but he's a journeyman, right? And he is going to run the pipe shop, and you have to, don't give him any static whatsoever. Otherwise, you are going to be sent to outer Slavovia, right? Okay." And so, okay. So I start doing that, and I start knocking stuff out, and I start making all these other guys look good, because all these pipes fit like a glove, even though their measurements weren't the best. I almost psychically, because every floor is the same, and once I did 2 or 3 floors, it was like, the same, and that allowed the monkeys to learn how to do it. So I did that. It's closed. Yep, everything. I mean, the you can go through that door and use the cash machine, but yeah. I stopped by for my breakfast, but I can get online here, so I'm doing that. That's what I can't get online in my house. So you have a good day, bud. Anyway, so then very shortly, no one wanted. I mean, we had, that site had close to 40,000 people working on it, right? It was like an ant farm. And the electrical, IBEW probably had at least 3,000 guys there, right? On every kind of level. And so you have that many guys, there are always going to be squawks. But nobody wanted to be, other than the head guy, and he was too busy doing it. So one day he comes in, and I had turned that little shack into my little, my little land, my little country, my little point of reference of the universe. And so he goes, I need someone to be the rep, union rep, to listen to people's problems. And now everyone comes down here. You got the place set up like a coffee house. Everyone takes their break down here. Not everyone, but a lot of people. So I'm just going to say you're the union rep, and this is the union rep's office, along with the pipe shop. And we'll build a little wall here, where your coffee shop is, to make it a little more quiet and private. And you can do that. You can do that, can't you? I said, oh, yeah, no problem. So all these guys came in and told me their problems. And they told me their problems about not just union stuff, but their family, their kids, their this, their that. And in actuality, unions, this union, the IBEW, actually had its own medical. It didn't just have insurance; it had its own medical. It had a thing called the Boys Athletic League and the Girls Vacation Fund. And I went, once I started talking to guys about their problems, I went back and said, "So what?" To this head guy, and say, "So this is the blah blah blah, and this is what's they're not just upset about this, that, or this on the job, but their family life is rolling into this, and that's what's getting in our way. So he said, well, we got stuff to take care of that. No one ever uses it." So he kind of put me not the head guy, but I got put on their board of that and started rolling people through all of their institutions that they had that they weren't really using, but they had. I mean, that's what their dues were supposed to be going to, and they used them, right? And that increased the efficiency of turning out the job at the World Trade Center, which was really on a clock, because they put up those towers in each one, and simultaneously, why we had so many people there, we were doing both at the same time. And they put them up, not finished them, but put them up in less than a year, And that is why, if you go to architects and engineers for 9/11, they will show you scientifically, nuts and bolts. This is how the building was built. Those airplanes could never, because the structural everything was surrounded by, concrete and steel. I mean, the internal steel, lateral and vertical steel beams were like, were like 8 feet. An I-beam 8 feet, and the steel itself in that I-beam was like that thick or bigger, and you can't melt that with aircraft kerosene in a half hour. Sorry, that doesn't work, right? And so, I mean, and the people who were, they weren't even going to do an investigation. Like they weren't going to do an investigation into JFK's assassination. But so many people, what are you talking about? And so, well, it was Oswald. You saw, he was, and he was shot, and that's the end of it. No. So they had to have that, right? Same thing with the World Trade Center. You saw those planes flying there. It fell down. It was bin Laden, right? And so they said that, basically to build those floors. So they built the walls first, and then they would, you go into a big box store, Walmart's, right? And you see, the ceiling goes way up there, and they have steel up there, and they're these, like, they look like steel beams, but they're not. There's like angle iron and rebar that has been, bent that and then spot welded, and that holds up the deck, right? When they put the roof on top of the deck, right? So the World Trade Center, they would do the same thing to build these floors. They would build a deck in the same kind of way, use that same kind of, very chintzy, very thin kind of thing to hold up an aluminum corrugated thing that they could walk on, put the steel, and it would support the weight of, the first level of steel that they would put in, and then they would pour a base concrete, right? And then they put in all the pipes and all that kind of stuff. Now that sucker could hold, hundreds of tons, right? And then they would put all the pipes and big steel and everything, and the mats and the aircraft cable, and then they would pour in one pour stress concrete about 4 foot thick, right? So each floor was like 3 floors in one. First is kind of a deck, and then they put this other concrete steel thing to support the construction of the major structural floor. So that gas, I said, see, these things melted. Well, those were just the deck, chintzy little something, the temporary thing to hold up a deck to put the subfloor in before you put the gigantic 4-foot structural floor. Those things weren't going anywhere. That building was taken down by space-based scalar weapons. I mean, the whole building was turned to dust, not big chunks. And structurally, there were a lot of things, it had been wired up to explode. About 6 months before they redid the elevators, which gave, they closed all the elevators and floors down for the night, and they would work. And who would know? They're fixing the elevators. And then they would, so there was, because in the, that after the first one was hit, everybody and his brother put a camera on this thing. So there's tons of film of explosions going on where whole, big chunks of steel come flying through the building, out the wall, through the air, and come landing 20 blocks away, crushing a bus, And the energy thing is a real thing because there was a, down that next woods in one big avenue, there's a lot of small streets, right? So there are a lot of government buildings down there. So there was some kind of police force, whether it was, who knows. But anyway, they had, it was this area not that far from that, on Mott or one of those little streets down there, and kind of where Radio Row used to be. And it was an area where municipal people could park their cars and nobody would mess with them, right? Well, something messed with their cars because 180 of these municipal cars were incinerated, right? The metal was burnt up, but the things like tires and rubber belts and anything that wasn't metal didn't burn at all. What was up with that? Very similar to the fires a year or so ago in California, where whole tracks were burned, but the grass, the trees weren't burnt. Houses were incinerated, but, again, cars were gone, but their tires were still there, So this was very, very, very interesting. Well, let's see. Let's see. What are you doing for lunch? Would you like to go for eat? Yes. Yes, that sounds like a great strategy. Where are you, gratitude? Maybe after you could talk. So I got my phone here, gratitude. Why don't you go to I can either go to Boone, and my phone works in Boone. So why don't you leave me your phone number and I'll give you a call. And do you know that Mexican restaurant that's right there in the parking lot of whatchamacallit, of where Walmart's is in Boone? That is a great restaurant, and that's open. You can take a lunch there. Otherwise, you can take me to, we can meet at the Walmart's parking lot. Or over, I usually park and talk on the phone. And, in that Walmart's parking lot, there's a Food Lion, and there's a section of that has trees over it. And that's, we could meet over there in that Food Lion. So, go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Leave me your phone number, and we'll go have lunch, right? So, anyway, telling everybody this place is closed. He just put his window up too fast. Anyway, so do that. Can you do that, Mr. Gratitude? Right. Yep, we can go visit the guy and he can fix your screen. I'll turn you on to the real human guy who knows it, because the other people are just robots. They only know, I'm just a unit blah blah blah. To help is like forget about it. They don't even know what it is to be a human being. So can you do that? Can you get a hold of me and leave me a phone number at the dude awake 42 at Gmail? And anyone in the United States wants to talk to me. Hey. You know, this place is closed. Yeah. Yeah, they closed back down. You know what it was? Greg got sick, and they closed it for that. They thought he had 19, but he didn't. And then people are just scared to go in there, so their business is like not that much. So I don't know all of this for fact, but that's my summation. But yeah, they're closed. Yeah. So you didn't have to get out of the car and it's what being a human being's about. Yep. So you stay well, brother. Okay. See, I make everyone a little happy, right? So in Boone, North Carolina, right? There is the Walmart, right? Big parking lot, right? And there's the Walmarts at one end, and then over there's like a little strippy thing of small stores, the Dollar Tree, my favorite store, and the Food Lion, right? But in the middle of that parking lot at one end is this great, big, amazing Mexican restaurant. Really, really good. I don't know if they reopened after closing, and I really don't know the schedule, but that's an easy place to be found. So, you know the Walmarts in Boone? Right. So, anyway, with the thought, and I was going to have breakfast here. I'm getting hungry, so heading out. So I hope they open this place up because this is my breakfast spot, and it's only 10 miles from my house. But I can, go to, and so okay, I'll go to Walmart's, right, and I'll be in the neighborhood I'll be parked over by the Food Lion. And I'm going to go into Walmart's and get a few things, and then I'll go over the Dollar Tree and park under a tree but so go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail and leave me your phone. Right? Do that. So I can look at that. Right? Go fly. You fly, don't bother me. Boo. Well, so I'm going to head to Boone. Why don't you, in the next 5 minutes before I finish this, leave me your phone number there on my Gmail. The Dude Awake. It's all in the blood.
Amazing. Morning, everybody. Enter the stars. So, for those of you that made it to the premiere last night, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Make this country great. And this was in this vamp movie, we're going to call it Abe Lincoln Vamp Hunter. This is it right here. We saw masks, lots and lots of masks, face coverings, whatever you want to call it. You can say what you want about this, oh, that they were robbers and this and that, but really they weren't. In this particular scene, this was a band of vamps operating out during the daylight, and there was really no particular. They had masks on.
Morning.
They weren't robbing anybody.
They're closed.
They were there to take this woman. So they were out of control.
Were you delivering or returning? Double bubble. Okay. No. I mean, they were open Saturday. I have no idea. You know, because of this pandemic thing, their traffic has gone way, way, way down. So I think it's getting at a point. We're making money, losing money. And the other thing, no, they can't get any help.
I've been told that.
Yep. So, and poor Missy, she's like doing everything, you know. Okay. You stay well, my friend. God bless.
Context. Well, now we know the context. And then we came to the conclusion that vamp bites are probably a metaphor for VCs. Now, Trump called himself the snake. And even if he doesn't force these VCs on us, the governors will. They've already proven that they do what they want, that they do not listen to the president when it comes to mandates. So why would it be any different? If Trump didn't intervene in the mask mandates, why would he intervene for the VC mandates? And I believe Biden is just a play on the word biting. See how the spiritual world manifests when you really think about and dig into what all this means as it's playing out? Now, I'm going to show you last night's montage later on in the show this morning, but we've got some other things to cover. So, how did we end up on the Abe Lincoln Vamp Hunter trail? Well, we had discovered that the Stephen King It franchise and the Pennywise clown had some clues in it. And we determined that Abe Lincoln was 1 year old when the first Pennywise clown emerged. Now, according to the legend that Stephen King illustrated here, Pennywise basically originated from some kind of a meteor that hit the Derry, Maine area, was buried under the ground, and inside that meteor is evil. Now, if you really want to think about what that metaphor is, it's probably a metaphor for the fallen ones. I mean, what else could it be, right? Something from outside coming down in here, and basically every 27 years carrying out, we're going to call it Janus sides, right? And so this is what's happening. So all we did was extrapolate backwards. It says right here,
This guy sounds like me.
in the It
Man, he's more
franchise,
serious. He's better
the
at it.
fandom here, 1864, 120 people, 50 children, 70 adults. There's the number 57 again, which stands for 5G Whiz. And you extrapolate backwards 27 years, that brings you to 1837. Then you go back another 27 years, so that brings you to 1810. And Lincoln,
Hey,
the
buddy,
one penny president,
closed.
was 1 year old.
Closed.
Now,
No, well, I mean,
Can't just stop
not
there.
today, I don't think.
because
Who knows?
if our
But
investigation is correct,
so you
there should have been
you're the
some
guy
kind
doing
of
the
sacrifice
grass,
that happened
cutting
in
the
the
lawns,
area
right?
in 1810.
You got a card?
Was there? There absolutely was. It was called the Yahoo Falls. You could read the screen there. And this occurred in 1810 when Lincoln was 1 year old, just miles away from where he grew up.
I can give you the number.
Now, this
Can
was
you write it down for me?
the Cherokee Indian tribe.
Oh, no.
The women and children were at this falls. They were cornered.
Oh, yes, I do. Here you go. Hold on a
and
sec.
Taken down.
Here, what is it?
How does this all fit into the Lincoln story? If you look at the area of Yahoo Falls, it is right smack dab in the middle of Lincoln territory in southern Kentucky,
Okay, and your
northern
name?
Tennessee.
You can call.
These were
Abe?
Lincoln and his father's stomping grounds.
Yep. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Now,
Because you guys do a great
it
job.
doesn't stop there, because according to history, Lincoln's paternal grandparents, his namesake Captain Abraham Lincoln and his wife Bathsheba,
Bathsheba.
moved the family from Virginia to Jefferson County, Kentucky. Captain was taken out in an Indian raid. His children, including 8-year-old Thomas, which was Lincoln's father, witnessed the attack. Do you see how all of this seems to dovetail in together? Now, the question becomes, was Lincoln the first Pennywise it clown? When you look at the timeline and how all this dovetails together, you got visual similarities as well with the crazy hair and the little Elvis thing going on in the top. And you consider the fact that they made these movies about Lincoln being a vamp. Actually, wasn't a vamp. But at the end of this, and you're going to see in the montage that I put together, he says it's not just vamps who live forever. He was basically calling himself a time traveler. And now you're seeing how all this begins to fit in together. Now, Lincoln was only 56 years old when he left this earth. But the weird thing is everybody agrees that Lincoln looked way older than 56. He looked like he was in his 80s in some of the images, the last images that we have.
Face it, masks fight COVID-19.
Yes, face it. Let's see. Again, I'm not showing up unless you give me your phone number, because I'm not going to run it all the way over there for nothing. So give me your phone number, on Gmail, thedudeawake42@gmail, and I'll give you a call, and we'll make a date, right? So I'm not going to be looking for someone with a shawl. Give me that number. Let's have a phone call, and we go from there. Okay. And let's see. Oh, it's 1 hour and 8 minutes, so that's about enough time. So I'll talk for a few more minutes. So that was interesting, don't you think? I have lots of people send me links of really strange stuff, and one of the most stranger things. So what else can I say? That's about it. And this is me signing off. I don't know when I'll do the next one, but the next week or so. I mean, it's I have to drive far to do this. Now my company place, the closest place, is 10 miles from me. They seem to be close. They might be close for who knows, So anyway, stay safe, be good, and remember, don't believe a word I say. Right? Go to the Dude Awake at 42, dudeawake42 at Gmail, dudeawake42 at Gmail, the dudeawake42 at Gmail. Go look at my writing at xratted.blogspot.com. And I'll talk to you later. So I'd love to have lunch with you, Mr. Gratitude, and but it's not going to happen unless, or Miss Gratitude, unless you give me your phone number so I can talk to you, and we'll make a date.
Okay.
Later.